and gentlemen, and welcome to part 2 of my Dickensian dialogue. Let us continue with our second candidate, shall we? In 2009, Walt Disney, infamous in recent years for its lack of originality, really outdid itself by not only releasing yet another film based on a book, but their third installment on the same book. This one used state-of-the-art graphics and was directed by motion capture technology pioneer Robert Zemeckis.
Like you've never seen.
Well, to me, when a movie is based on a book, the more loyal it is to the book, the better. And this one takes the grand prize. In all my life, I have never seen a Christmas Carol movie, or indeed any movie, this loyal to its book. It features more from the original story than any other production I have ever seen, including lots of little details that most people aren't familiar with. Normally, when it comes to a story, Hollywood shows about as much loyalty and integrity as a Nazi collaborator, which is why I find this film so special. Now, I've never actually read A Christmas Carol, but I have heard it on audiobook. It was unabridged, so that's the same thing, right? My point is, I know the original text, and it's eerie how this movie follows the text almost word for word. When I watch the film, I can hear the narrative in my head. If you want to know what I'm talking about, have a look at these clips with the audiobook overlaid.
Even the blind men's dogs appeared to know him, and when they saw him coming on, would tug their owners into doorways and up courts, and then would wag their tails as though they said, "No eye at all is better than an evil eye, dark master." The Lord Mayor, in the stronghold of the mighty mansion house, gave orders to his 50 cooks and butlers to keep Christmas as a Lord Mayor's household should. The door of Scrooge's counting-house was open, that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, who in a dismal little cell beyond, a sort of tank, was copying letters. Wherefore the clerk put on his white comforter and tried to warm himself at the candle. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller that it looked like one coal. But he couldn't replenish it, for Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room, and so surely as the clerk came in with the shovel, the master predicted that it would be necessary for them to part.
Christmas by losing your situation. You're quite a powerful speaker, sir. I wonder you don't go into Parliament.
Don't be cross, Uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow.
Scrooge said that he would see him. Yes, indeed he did. He went the whole length of the expression, and said that he would see him in that extremity first.
Let's see you in hell first.
But why? Why so cold-hearted, Uncle? Why?
Why did you get married?
The office was closed in a twinkling, and the clerk, with the long ends of his white comforter dangling below his waist, for he boasted no greatcoat, went down a slide on Cornhill at the end of a lane of boys 20 times in honour of its being Christmas Eve.
In honor of Christmas Eve!
You see? They even include little details like that rarely made it into any of the other films. But something that was disloyal to the book was their depiction of Scrooge's house.
He lived in chambers which had once belonged to his deceased partner. They were a gloomy suite of rooms, in a lowering pile of building up a yard, where it had so little business to be that one could scarcely help fancying it must have run there when it was a young house, playing at hide-and-seek with other houses, and forgotten the way out again.
Not only is it disloyal to the book, but also to Scrooge's character, The fact that he lives in such a modest home conveys that he is a skinflint who saves as much and spends as little as possible. He is not the sort of person who would splurge on a nice townhouse. But something that is both loyal and disloyal to the book is their portrayal of the ghost of Christmas past. In the book, he is described as a sort of old man with child proportions, barefooted, strong arms, carrying a candle snuffer, and bright light coming off his head.
I am the ghost of Christmas past.
Well, as you can see, the ghost of Christmas past doesn't really fit the description at all here. But this is the only movie of its kind that I've seen that understands and makes use of the light metaphor.
Is it possible that you might put your cap on?
Would you so soon put out with your worldly hands the light?
No.
You see, if you look at the original text, you'll begin to understand that the light coming off the ghost's head represents the past. Scrooge is uncomfortable looking at it because, although he doesn't realise it, when he sees the light, he sees his own past. The candle snuffer the ghost carries represents how people like Ebenezer Scrooge shut out the memories of their own past.
Spirit, remove me from this place.
I told you, these were shadows of things that have been. They are what they are. Do not blame me.
Remove me. I cannot bear it.
He turned upon the ghost, and seeing that it looked upon him with a face in which some strange way there were fragments of all the faces it had shown him.
Leave me. Take me back. Haunt me no longer!
For once, these filmmakers fully understand the metaphor of the light, and I'm guessing they wanted to embrace that further by making the ghost resemble a candle. So, they may have abandoned the original appearance, but they appreciate the metaphor of the light in a way that no other film I've seen has so far.
I am the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me!
The ghost of Christmas present, however, looks exactly the way he did in the book. They even included his little-known scabbard.
Hey, see you wear a scabbard, but no sword.
Indeed. Peace on earth. Goodwill toward men.
You see, in the book, the ghost is described as wearing a scabbard, but no sword. This is to point out how the ghost of Christmas present, who, to me at least, also seems to be the spirit of Christmas, is about peace on earth. But, you see, people don't think to look for a sword in the first place. They don't notice what's not there unless they think it's supposed to be there in the first place. The empty scabbard points out that there is an absence of a sword. I say again, in many small and big ways, it is incredibly loyal to the book. Until we get to the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. It starts out all right, but then they suddenly throw in this chase scene through the streets of London. This scene annoys me for several reasons. Firstly, I mentioned in part 1 how annoying it is when people confuse the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come with death. I mean, the skeletal hands were bad enough, but the hearse is not helping. I mean, come on, people! The name of the author was Charles Dickens, not Terry Pratchett. Secondly, this scene was not in the book. When you make a book into a film, there's always some parts left out because of the precious little time in the film. But when you put something in the film that wasn't even in the book to begin with, it's even more outrageous. I mean, didn't you people have enough to do? This is all time you could be spending on putting in more stuff from the book. Thirdly, if that wasn't bad enough, this scene does nothing for the story at all. I mean, why are you chasing him? Why did you shrink him? How is any of this helping Scrooge learn the error of his ways? I mean, that's the whole reason you brought him here, isn't it? You're supposed to teach him, not torment him, you sadistic spirit. Fourthly, and finally, I find this annoying because it's so out of character for the film. I mean, you people have followed the original book amazingly well so far, and then suddenly you throw in this. It's as if the writers suddenly got bored sticking to the original text, and threw this in to see if the public were actually literate enough to realize it wasn't in the book. Having said that, I still think this film is more loyal to the book than any other production.
Christmas pudding, no doubt.
Well, as I said in part 1, I like an actor who can portray a variety of roles, and Jim Carrey does just that in this film. I was surprised by the amount and variety of the parts that he played. You see, when an actor plays a certain kind of role for long enough, people begin to think it's the only kind of performance he can give or is willing to give, and he becomes typecast. Like Jean Reno playing that particular Frenchman who was particularly French, or Jack Black who always plays a character based on Jack Black. After films such as Liar Liar, Bruce Almighty and The Truman Show, and of course the Ace Ventura films, I'd come to the assumption that Jim Carrey had been forever typecast as the wacky funny guy who only occasionally displays some other emotion to move the story along. I genuinely did not expect such a varied performance by him in a single film. For he not only played Ebenezer Scrooge, but all three of the ghosts. And when I say play, I mean he didn't just do the voices. Motion capture technology meant he made the movements for the digital characters as well.
Bob had identified Jim Carrey as the perfect mocap actor, and we knew that, whatever we designed, he could perform, and he could probably perform better.
Every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled in his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart.
My face is actually moving the makeup that they create, but I had to give them a structure.
Because the design of Scrooge, he had this long nose and he had these long, pointy, bony fingers that worked really, really well in 3D because it kind of popped him out at the audience.
Humbug.
Although The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come doesn't actually have any lines, so I guess there's no points for acting there. Yeah, it's interesting that actors these days are so sure that performing while covered in spots won't destroy their career. I mean, ask Kelly Clarkson. Visually, it's a feast for the eyes. The graphics are amazingly good and detailed. I love the way the characters are designed. They look exactly like Charles Dickens might have envisioned them, and there's plenty of stuff to look at along the way. This flyover scene is superb. It even made the snow look like it was coming sideways as we moved through it. The scene with the wandering spirits. Some people leave some of this out, but these people went for the gusto. There's enough of them to make them look like there are stars in the sky. I like to pause it here and take in all the differently money-bound ghosts they've come up with. It's like Where's Wally, written by Ivan Reitman. Now, I've said that it's very loyal to the book, but at the same time, they've done a few things of their own, and managed to put them in without detracting too much from the story. Observe. Starting a movie by opening the book on which it is based. Classic Disney. Dead guy! Not classic Disney!
Stubbins.
Now there's how you let someone know he's a miser. I like how they do the knocker scene in this film. Wait, that came out wrong. My point is, I like how this thing starts off in the background. Usually it's heralded in by music, but not this time. It's just there, in the background. It's supernatural, the sort of thing that can turn a person's entire sense of reality upside down. But only if you see it. Now in the book, Jacob Marley has a bandage around his head. He unties it and his jaw drops onto his chest. The Disney people not only took that on board, but they did something unique with it.
But you were always a good man of business.
Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence, all my business.
Very strange, indeed. Not many mortals are granted an heavenly perspective of man's world. Yes.
Now this means of locomotion wasn't in the book, but it still looks good.
Are they yours?
They are man's. This boy is ignorance. This girl is want. Beware them both.
I have mixed feelings about this scene. For one thing, it's not every Christmas Carol movie that shows the metaphor of the two children who cling to the ghost of Christmas present. But they don't do a very good job of explaining it. I know it's a faux pas to simply spell out the meaning of something, but still, we need a little more than this boy is ignorance, this girl is want. But on the other hand, they do something with this scene that I've never seen before.
Have they no refuge? No resource?
Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses?
This movie goes the extra mile by showing how these children, or indeed poor children in general, may turn out without financial support. Driven to desperation by poverty, they may resort to crime and prostitution to support themselves. Thus, they may be corrupted by their lifestyle and spend the rest of their lives in prison or succumbing to STDs, and thus their lives will be ruined. This is not really the point of the two children. However, it really does force Scrooge to confront the issues the poor face due to the negligence of the wealthy, which is exactly what this scene is supposed to be about. Well, that was disturbing. The part where the ghost of Christmas present dies has always been a little sad for me. Very sad for me, actually. But they really went to town on this one.
I say, what's today?
What's today, my fine fellow?
Today? What Christmas Day?
This part with the little boy has always been an iconic part of the book, and I like what they've done with it. Not here, but back here.
Not many mortals are granted an heavenly perspective of man's will.
By doing this, they show us that the day Scrooge was given a tour of the city by the ghost was in fact Christmas Day, and somehow he was taken back to the beginning of that day. I'll confess that in all my years of watching Christmas Carol movies, I've never got that before. When Cratchit makes eye contact with the audience here, I wondered, is he going to break the fourth wall?
And Scrooge was better than his word.
Oh, he is. I love the part when the street becomes the very image of a Dickensian Christmas, and the way the image of Ebenezer Scrooge and Tiny Tim lingers as the carolers sing the words, "Glory to the newborn King." I like to think that maybe they're referring to Tiny Tim, who has been saved and may go on to do great things. Or better yet, to Ebenezer Scrooge, who has been reborn as this King of Christmas. So, in conclusion, this film does have its problems. It goes off the rail a bit with the third ghost, and some parts are so morbid that they wouldn't have gone there even if Tim Burton was directing. But for the most part, it's got great computer graphics that must have made the Pixar lamp leak its battery fluid, superb acting, imagination, and shows loyalty to the written word as much as right-wing Americans, while showing loyalty to the actual spirit and intention as much as left-wing Americans. In my opinion, this is an underrated movie and it deserves to be up there with the Christmas classics. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was part 2 of my Christmas Carol Christmas special. Join me for the exciting conclusion in part 3, when these two films will be compared to each other, right here on Opinions from the Armchair.